Welcome Outdoors for Adventure. In this video, we will be traveling some forest roads in Arkansas as we explore in our 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee Trailhawk. So buckle up and let's start traveling. The automobile changed everything about recreation in the National Forest. The late 19th century saw many innovations and experiments in motor-powered transportation in the U.S. and abroad. And by the early 1900s, cars were becoming a common sight in many cities and towns. As production methods and engineering improved and the advantages of the horseless carriage became more obvious, automobile ownership grew quickly from 8,000 cars in 1900 to 40 million cars and trucks by 1930. A person could get much further in a car than a carriage, and to move so much faster through the landscape was a novel experience. It was exciting, and people were eager to find new places to go. From a Sunday drive to auto pioneering, auto tourism swept the nation, propelling millions of Americans into the countryside seeking adventure on the roads. Many headed to the National Forest, drawn by their scenic beauty and the respite they provided from the heat and congestion of the cities. The nation's roads, however, were not ready. Many had evolved from earlier foot or wagon trails and still ranged from dirt to dust to mud, depending on the weather. Regional and transcontinental auto trails such as the Lincoln Highway, the Yellowstone Highway, and the Trail to Sunset, developed in the early 20th century, were rarely paved. In 1911, the National Highways Association was launched to promote a nationwide highway network funded and developed by the federal government, as opposed to piecemeal development by state and local entities. The Daughters of the American Revolution soon joined the Better Roads movement, advocating for a transcontinental highway that followed historical trails such as the Santa Fe Trail and the Cumberland Road. Commercialization of auto tourism followed closely. The Rand McNally Company was among the first to capitalize on the trend. In 1916, they combined the driver's need for clear directions and the hotlier's need for customers and published the Auto Trail series. These maps and text descriptions of interstate auto routes included listings of subscribing businesses. Rand McNally combined their guides with an aggressive effort to mark entire routes, creating the first numbered marking system for highways. This alleviated the confusion caused by regionally developed roads that would end abruptly or change names at a county or state line. An initiative to develop a federally numbered highway system began in 1925. But it wasn't until the late 1930s that the nation had an interstate system of paved roads crisscrossing the country. These included US 1, US 40, and US 66. The See America First advertising campaign during the first half of the 20th century played on patriotic sentiments, linking national tourism with patriotism. The campaign urged middle-class citizens to spend their vacation dollars in the U.S. instead of Europe and claimed that vast scenic beauty of the American West was surpassed even the Alps. Thousands embarked on road trips to see the country, especially its national parks and forests. Yet much of the road building effort of the Forest Service had been directed toward providing access for logging and communications. These roads were not designed with scenic attributes in mind, let alone safety. As thousands of auto tourists poured into the forest, it soon became clear that better roads were necessary. The Federal Aid Road Act of 1916 acknowledged the need for better roads in the national forest and provided limited funding for their construction. The Federal Aid Highway Act of 1921 stipulated funding for two types: forest highways intended for public travel and local community access, and forest developed roads for the protection and utilization of forest. While road construction in national forests continued to be focused on utility, the idea of preserving and highlighting scenic beauty was gaining awareness. Scenic parkways were developed in many parts of the country. Examples being the Bronx River Parkway in Westchester County, New York, and the Columbia River Highway in Washington, both 1922, and the Mount Vernon Memorial Parkway in Alexandria, 1932. The roads were designed to preserve natural beauty, enhance the driving experience with wide medians and side margins, and engineered to accentuate scenic views. As the concept of engineering roads for pleasure driving spread, these parkways served as prototypes for subsequent scenic highway projects, such as the spectacular Going to the Sun Road in Glacier National Park, 1933. And the Blue Ridge Parkway construction began in 1935 in the Shenandoah Mountains, which travels through several national forests. Mobility increased dramatically after World War II. As family incomes increased, automobiles became less expensive, and the federal government embarked on a program to create a nationwide network of superhighways. This combination opened the national forest to even greater numbers of automobile tourists. The 1953 annual report of the Chief of the Forest Service noted that, in addition to the 33 million visits to national forest recreation areas, some 84 million traveled highways and roads through the national forest in order to enjoy the national forest environment, the scenery, and the climatic relief which the altitude and forest provide. In 1964, the President's Recreation Advisory Council, made up of the Secretaries of the Interior, Agriculture, Defense, Commerce, Health, Education, and Welfare, and the Administrator of Housing and Home Finance Agency, wrote a proposal for a national program of scenic roads and parkways. Their reasonings, as stated: because driving for pleasure is one of America's most widely and actively engaged in outdoor recreation pursuits. Because of the steeply mounting number of families owning automobiles and possessing the leisure time, income, and desire to see and otherwise enjoy America's wealth of scenic and natural beauty, both close to home and at far distances. Because our rapid urban and metropolitan growth is increasing the need for and decreasing the open space resources for outdoor recreation. Because of the substantial economic benefits generated by tourism and sightseeing made possible by attractive roads and parkways, and because of the great potential gains in aesthetic and recreation benefits known to be associated with future road planning, design, and construction activities. While that program was not funded until 1991, the Forest Service established its own scenic byway system in 1987. The initial roster of 9 roads quickly grew to 30 within 2 years, and that number had grown to 138 designated roads by 2010. The first comprehensive study of outdoor recreation, undertaken by the Outdoor Recreation Resources Review Council in 1960, listed driving for pleasure as the number one outdoor recreation activity. In a follow-up study 20 years later, it was still listed in the top 10 outdoor activities. In a 2007 study, while not in the top 10, driving for pleasure still showed growth as an outdoor activity. America's ongoing love affair with the automobile ensures that auto tourism will continue to be a force in recreational planning in the National Forest. The 2010 National Visitors Use Monitoring Summary reported by the Forest Service reported an estimated 300 million visits by vehicle on Forest Service roads or nearby corridors to view scenery. Such facts speak to America's continuing desire to explore their country, their history, and their natural wonders by the means that is the most accessible as well as intimate and automobile. The history of forest roads in the Ouachita National Forest is largely tied to the establishment of the forest itself in 1907 by President Theodore Roosevelt, with significant road development occurring during the Great Depression era through the Civilian Conservation Corps, which built many of the forest roads and recreation facilities to provide employment during that time. Notable developments include the Tallahassee Scenic Byway connecting Mena, Arkansas to Tallahassee, Oklahoma, and the expansion of the forest into Oklahoma in the 1930s, further adding to the road network within the area. When the Arkansas National Forest, later renamed Ouachita, was created in 1907, the initial focus was on logging operations, which required basic access roads to be built throughout the forest. During the Great Depression, the CCC played a major role in constructing a large portion of the current road system within the Ouachita National Forest, including scenic drives and access points to various recreational areas. In the 1930s, the Ouachita National Forest was extended into Oklahoma, leading to the development of additional roads in that region. As tourism and recreational activities within the forest increased, more roads were built to provide access to hiking trails, campgrounds, scenic overlooks, and other attractions. Some of the information provided in this video was written by Nancy C. Nye, Special Projects, Forest History Society.